On Monday morning, September the 16th, a lady in Buffalo, New York, she opened her front door, looked down at a box that she had left outside for cats, and saw a little 3-year-old boy crawling out of the box. Now, this little boy in a box holds the key to a mystery that began 1,200 miles away. We're going to talk about that, plus a whole lot more crime news that you can use right here on today's Crime Talk. Well, hello, Charlie Crimebuster here, and we welcome you to the podcast called Crime Talk, where we talk about crime. And today's feature, the mystery of a little boy in a box. And what a mystery it is. Now, for those sleuths out there, those armchair investigators, this whodunit, well, it's filled with mystery. But first of all, let me thank you for joining us on today's podcast. Now, our podcast, we try to be very original. We're very transparent. We don't do one of those podcasts where you do all these kind of mixes to the point that you try to just fade out any little mistake or anything like that. We try to be real and bring you real stuff in real time. So you will hear a few uhs and sometimes some mistakes, but you will get real stuff from us. We can promise you that. Let me ask you, would you give up your rights for some security regarding your vehicle? Well, some folks in Clay County, Florida, are doing just that. Now, Clay County is a county that shares the border with Duval County, and that's the part that takes up the greater Jacksonville, Florida area. It's called the largest geographical county in the United States. And there in Clay County that borders it, there's a new voluntary program that would give deputies permission to pull you over, even if you didn't break the law. You see, the Clay County Sheriff's Office launched the Combat Auto Theft, or they call it CAT, C-A-T. Now, this is designed to help reduce auto thefts and to recover stolen vehicles in a more timely manner. You see, what you have is you have a bright yellow decal with a paw print placed on the lower left of the rear window of your car. And that decal allows law enforcement to stop your vehicle without a cause if it's seen on the streets between the time of 1 and 5 a.m. in the morning. Now, Andrew Ford, the public information officer with the Clay County Sheriff's Office, he tells us that deputies would then check to make sure that the driver is indeed the registered owner, or that that driver is authorized to have the vehicle in their possession. He goes on to say, while we're on patrol, if we see that decal, we're stopping that vehicle automatically. Now, he said it's a brief encounter. It doesn't tie up deputies from handling other calls. And a gal by the name of Carla Vicari, she knows the frustration of having your car stolen, because she says, I lived in Erie, Pennsylvania, up north, and I had a car stolen. Way up there, she said. Just wake up in the morning and went to take my son to school, and bang, my car was not there. Now, she believes that this program could help deter other criminals that are out there trying to steal your car. She said, I hope that if they see the sticker, that would make them think twice. That's what this young lady says. However, the sheriff's office wants you to know now that by signing the application form, you could be subject to other violations if you're pulled over. They go on to say, we'll stop the vehicle without cause. But if there's any other criminal violations that we observe when we walk up to that car, DUI, driving while intoxicated, or we smell marijuana, or we believe there's maybe narcotics in the car, then you are subject to those violations. That's what Ford said. Now, the sheriff's office also says the program provides security for those who may have other problems, dementia, and they become confused during the early morning hours. They begin to travel in their vehicles, maybe not knowing where they're going or where they are. Now, I want you to remember the story. This story, where if you have that decal on your window at the right place in the car, I'm going to show you how we're going to tie this story. If they see you on the road between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m., I'm going to show you how we're going to actually tie that story into the mystery of the little boy in a box. Our feature story, The Little Boy in a Box. And also, we're going to give you a crime tip that you can use. Now, with our news you can use, we like to say some things that will encourage the police as well. And there is a story that came out of DeLand, Florida, right here near where this podcast is recorded. It's a heartwarming story, and it actually went viral and all over the United States. At Stetson University, there in DeLand, Florida, there was a college student who walked up to a Volusia County deputy, and he sat down next to him, or bent down next to him, and he asked the deputy if he could pray over him, and he said a prayer for that officer. That moving incident went nationwide in a post. If you'd like to see that, we invite you to join us at our Facebook page, Charlie Crimebuster on Facebook. Charlie Crimebuster on Facebook. We posted the story right there for you to read. You can also see it in our show notes that we publish about this particular program. And it's certainly worth you looking at, and it's really heart-moving to see that there are those out there who do support law and order. There are those out there who do support the police, who stand for the line to the blue. All right, it's time for our Charlie Crimebuster Cyber Alert. Cyber Alert, cybercrime. Now this is a new one for many people, one that could catch some of you that are even pretty good at catching these scams. You see, Michelle, she was looking for a job, and in Rock Island County, Illinois, she found they were hiring. She was excited when she got an email now that was sent through the recruiting site Indeed. Many of us are familiar with that, I'm sure. This particular email invited her for an interview. But before she could schedule the interview with Rock Island County, Illinois, they were hiring. Before she could reschedule or schedule the interview, the recruiter needed just a few things, For the next step, the email goes on to say, please email the following information directly to us. We need the photo of your identification card or your driver's license, the front and the back sides, a picture of your face, a selfie, the last 4 digits of your Social Security, and please make sure that you have attached all 3 photos, that the pictures are not blurred, that the picture is just the right size, that all 4 ID's corners are visible, not trimmed, but visible, and that all the text in these documents are clearly readable. The email goes on to say, I'll be waiting for your message of all the required photos. After that, I'll make a quick check of your background, and we will assign you the time of your interview. Now, there is a part of this that really makes sense, because companies do run background checks. But for some reason, Michelle, she felt a little uneasy about this, and so she was asking the question to the experts, is this a scam? The answer? Yes, it's a scam. You see, a recruiter doesn't need any of this information before an interview. Even after an interview, they don't need a selfie, a copy of your driver's license, or your last 4 digits of your Social Security number. If they're running a credit report, they're going to need your whole Social Security number, and then, now get this, you have to sign a release for them to run the check. So folks, if you get an email like this, and the interview hasn't even taken place, and they want you to give them all that information, do the Forrest Gump thing. Run, Forrest, run! Get as far away as possible, because, my friend, you are about to be scammed. Now, John Snyder from Rock Island County there in Illinois, he confirmed that this was a scam, and he said it didn't originate from their office. He said that by email. Now, the recruiter does not represent Rock Island County. That's what he goes on to say. We have been in contact today with a representative of Indeed.com, and they have been advised of a breach in their system, and the breach did not happen on their end as well. So then an Indeed spokesman gets involved in it, and they say, quote, account security is of the utmost importance to Indeed, and something that we diligently monitor. Account holders are responsible for use of their password. Our investigation to this particular account showed evidence of a compromise due to an unauthorized password use. There was no security breach at Indeed. Our risk operations team identified the compromise immediately. We took appropriate action on the employer account. And they encourage job seekers to review what they have as guidelines for a safe job search. Now, whatever happened, this scam artist figured out a way to breach the system and to set out to find job hunters who are victims. Some of these people are desperate to get a job. They may take risks and others will not. But we're all thankful that Michelle, she recognized the problem. She did not provide the information. Now please remember, background checks come at the job offer stage, not before the first interview. Now, for those who would like those guidelines for a safe job search, well, we're going to help you out. We're going to post the link on our website for your benefit. It will be under that tab that says Resources there at CharlieCrimebuster.com. CharlieCrimebuster.com under Resources, and we call them Resources for Crime Fighters. Now, you can also sign up for news you can use so that you can stay on top of crime prevention by signing up for our newsletter. That's CharlieCrimebuster.com, CharlieCrimebuster.com. Also, we would encourage you to check out the show notes, because in the show notes we have a link that you can click on, and by clicking on that link you can find these guidelines for safe job searching. Now, losing your identity is no funny matter. We understand that. But here is something I did find funny as we take time to discuss the crazy crook story. That's before we get to our feature story, the mystery of a little boy in a box. A little boy in a box. That mystery started in Longwood, Florida, not very far from where this podcast is recorded. A young couple, nice looking young couple in a nice area, along with their friend and a cute little 3-year-old boy, decided to take what their family called a road trip, which ended up with a little boy in a box and an incredible mystery, which we're going to share in just a moment. But first, it's time for our crazy crook story. You know, most of the time, folks, when plotting your escape from a correctional facility, the plan does not include, now get this, breaking back into the jail. That's right, you heard me right. But that's exactly what did happen in Holmes County, Mississippi. You see, it occurred back during this past September. According to police, four inmates of the Holmes-Humphreys County Correctional Facility actually succeeded in escaping the jail and robbing a nearby convenience store. Now, that was before attempting to break back into the prison that they had broken out. Incredibly, the inmates succeeded in returning to the facility undetected. Stolen goods in tow, they had them with them. And it wasn't until the police reviewed the surveillance camera footage from the store they realized what had happened. Now, those four inmates who broke out of jail to commit a crime and then broke back into jail to get back in jail, they've all been charged with a commercial burglary. As you can imagine, the Holmes-Humphrey County Correctional Facility, they promised to, I guess so, review their security measures. Get that now. Talk about some crazy crooks. They not only broke out of the jail, committed a crime, they turned around and broke back into the jail. Crazy, crazy crook story. Now, speaking of those security measures that there's no doubt you're going to be looking at there at the Holmes-Humphrey County Correctional Facility in Mississippi, there's a 62-year-old woman with a disability. She took her own security very seriously, and she defended herself with a shotgun. I guess we could call this, Granny, go get your gun. A granny with a gun. Now, you've heard of a good man with a gun stops a bad man with a gun? Well, here's a granny with a gun who stops a bad man. Authorities out in eastern Oklahoma, they said a man broke into the hearing-impaired woman's home. She not only was 62 years of age, she also had hearing. She was hearing impaired. Well, this guy broke into her home in Rock Island about 5:30 p.m. on a Sunday. That's what the Associated Press reported anyhow. LaFleur County Sheriff Rob Sill, he told the AP that the woman yelled at the intruder to get out of her house. She told him, "Get out of my house." Well, at first he don't succeed. Then he moved toward her. Well, the 62-year-old woman, as this guy comes charging toward her, she grabbed a shotgun, shot him once in the chest. Deputies discovered the suspect's body in the kitchen area of the house. That's what the AP said, adding that he was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, the woman was uninjured, adding that Seal said she didn't know the man and she had never seen him before. And Seal, he goes on to say that the Oklahoma Medical Examiner's Office identified the subject as Matthew A. Harvey. Matthew A. Harvey, 31 years of age, from Huntington, Arkansas. That's according to the AP. Rock Island is on the Oklahoma-Arkansas border. Now, the sheriff also added that Harvey had a lengthy criminal record in Oklahoma and Arkansas for property and drug crimes. Well, all I got to say is that this guy, Matthew Harvey, he messed with the wrong woman. A woman with a shotgun, a disability, defended herself, protected herself with a shotgun. Now, as you know, I, along with a whole ton of people in the law enforcement community, I believe in the right to defend yourself. I believe that people who do defend themselves or their loved ones with guns also should not only defend themselves, but they should be very smart by the way they carry their weapons. If they have a concealed weapons permit, they need to be smart about it. Now, if you do not know what that is, I want to again refer you to our website. And under the resource tab, you're going to find a guide to smart carry. This says not only do you have the freedom to carry your weapon, the Second Amendment gives you that freedom, but also you have a responsibility along with that right. And that responsibility is to be safe with it. That responsibility is to be smart about how you carry and how you handle your weapon. I would encourage you to take time, if you could, to be sure and check it out. That's right there on our website. Right there on our website. You can find it, CharlieCrimebuster.com, under the resource area. Now, speaking of that, the last two podcasts, we talked about red flags that you need to know about in order to spot a potential mass shooter. Our last podcast, we talked about a ton of red flags. So many red flags, my friend, good night. So many red flags that you would think that you were covered with red, as far as what happened in the Parkland school shooting. Terrible shooting. 5 minutes, 17 people killed. You see, looking for red flags works. Every week we read about potential shooters that are reported and investigated. And in all these situations, and I want to make this very clear to you because there's a myth out there. There are some people who acquaint red flag laws for a play to get your guns. I don't believe that at all. Teaching you to look for red flags is just helping you to learn some of the things that cops and investigators already know when looking for potential mass shooters. They're the kind of signs that you can spot because you're near that situation. You have some kind of knowledge of that person. You have had some kind of interaction with that person. Red flags that you can spot that lead you to realize that there may be a problem there. Therefore, due process should be followed in investigating that to see that that person is capable of harming themselves or others. Last week we talked about two situations. One situation was a young man who went out shooting with his mother one afternoon after school. He was excited about it. He posted it. People reported him. The law enforcement got involved. They took a quick look and they realized there's no foul here. This is a young man who's out enjoying a hobby of shooting with his mom. No foul. Now, some of the community got a little riled about it, and they had to have some kind of hearing about that. But in this situation, there was no foul. In another situation we showed you where indeed the shooter of Parkland was indeed a very dangerous person and should have been stopped a long time ago and should have been investigated a long time ago. And thanks to red flags that you can see, you can keep something like this from happening again. So again, remember, don't be fooled into thinking that red flags is a way to get our guns. I don't believe that at all. And if I did believe that, I would tell you that that's not right, because you have a right to bear arms. You see, it is a tool that we can use to keep others safe. And while some may try to turn it into a gun grab, there are enough of us who will stand up for our rights. And by the way, in case you want to know where I stand on banning assault rifles, I want to tell you right off the bat, I will not support making millions of good people into criminals. Because there are millions, did you hear me? There are millions of people who have assault rifles who are good people and use it for protection or use it for hunting or use it for a number of other things. All right, it's time for us to talk about our feature, The Little Boy in a Box. It's a mystery stretching more than 1,000 miles from Orlando to New York, where a Central Florida little boy was found sleeping in a box on someone's front porch. The woman who found the toddler outside of her home around 8 a.m. on Monday morning, September the 16th, Lois Osberger, she told WIVB-TV that he was wearing only a pull-up diaper as he slept inside this cardboard box. She goes on to say, quote, "I came out the door and I opened this up and I just happened to look down and I see him starting to crawl out." That's what she told the TV station. Osberger asked the toddler where his mother was, and all the little boy said was, "The car's on fire. The car's on fire." That's all he kept saying. That's what she told WKBW-TV. Now police, as custom, began to canvass the area to see if anyone could identify the little boy. You see, often they find that missing children can be connected to the local area, but this time they were coming up, it was zilch, nothing. Now that same day, around 6 p.m., a burned-out vehicle containing human remains was found, not far from that site where the little boy was sleeping, about 1 mile actually. But at the time, the police were not connecting the cases. And then after turning the little boy in a box over to social services and then posting that all over social media, surprisingly, a contact to the little boy reached 1,200 miles away to Central Florida. The little boy's grandparents made contact with the police. You see, 31-year-old Miguel and 24-year-old Nicole from Longwood, Florida, along with a friend by the name of Demille Roman, along with their 3-year-old son, Noelvin, took a road trip, leaving the Orlando area on Saturday, September the 14th. Now, these three, along with their 3-year-old son, went on a road trip to New York. They were having some trouble with their vehicle, so they rented a minivan for the trip. That's what police were told. You see, it was not like the parents to leave the child alone. Miguel and Nicole were very protective of this kid. That's what the grandparents said. It's not like they weren't always buying him things. They had everything for him. They took care of him. Miguel's family says that they last spoke with him on Sunday night, and the boy was found at the Buffalo doorstep on Monday morning. Now back to that burned out vehicle. You see, they confirmed that the car was the same one that was rented by the missing parents, Nicole and Miguel, as well as the 29-year-old family friend, Demille Roman. Now, they rented this minivan and then they drove from Florida to New York, and those reasons yet are still unknown, but the mystery does intensify. Captain Jeff Renato, said that while they could determine that there were 2 bodies inside this van that was rented by this couple, he says it could take up to 4 weeks to really identify the victims. Thus, all 3 persons remain missing at this time, even though there's 2 bodies there in that burned up vehicle. Now, Renato revealed 2 chilling security videos. The first one showed a man walking toward a secluded industrial areas at 2:54 a.m. on Monday morning, exactly 3 minutes after that car arrived, the minivan. Now get that, secluded industrial area. Remember that phrase, please. A second video at 3:01 a.m., exactly 7 minutes later, shows 2 men fleeing the scene. One of them was holding the child's hand as he ran beside him. The other was holding what appeared to be a gas can. Now, he also told the press conference that the 2 individuals seen fleeing the scene did not match the descriptions of any of the 3 missing. However, he added, because the area was in complete darkness and the CCTV used infrared, that other things of the person of interest may not be concluded from the footage. It could make it difficult to make such conclusions, but in his opinion, the two that left that scene, that were seen in that security video, were not any of the three people that came from Florida along with the young boy. The police chief described the crime as beyond disturbing. He goes on to say, clearly that little boy was inside that vehicle, and there's two human beings that burned in that vehicle. He goes on to say it's a horrific, horrific crime. But he also added, I guess we should be thankful that the little boy is alive and safe. It could have been another tragic outcome. Police are asking anyone with information about the case to contact police up there at 716-851-4466. That's 716-851-4466. If you know anything about this family or anything about this mystery, please contact police. 716-851-4466. Now, since that report, there's more interesting details that we find about what's happening in this case. First of all, there's good news. There's good news. Yes, the little boy, Noelvin, the little boy Noelvin, the little boy in the box. The little boy in the box, well, he's been reunited with his grandmother, Zanata Colon, here in Central Florida. Zanata Colon, Central Florida. She's the grandmother, and the little boy is reunited with his grandmother. And that's the good news about all of this terrible, terrible tragedy. Now, the mysterious case involving a burned-out car with two bodies inside and a 3-year-old boy found asleep on the porch less than a mile away, well, it took another turn on Friday, September the 20th. It was then that law enforcement sources revealed that investigators had found the hotel room where the family was staying. And they found 2 kilos of what is believed to be cocaine in the room. You see, on September the 20th, the Buffalo News reported that police discovered actually 2 kilos, 4.4 pounds of cocaine in the hotel room near the Buffalo International Airport, where the group was staying. The drugs were found in one of 2 coolers that had been left behind. Now, that suspected cocaine, about 4.4 pounds, it was inside the cooler, and a second empty cooler was found in the room. And discovery of drugs could help the police establish what Nicole, my gal, and DeMille was actually doing up there with that little boy, all from the Orlando area, what they were doing in Buffalo. It just might. All this is speculation right now. Nothing's proven. But it sure does add to the mystery that drugs are involved, doesn't it? The trio is still considered missing, but the families, they fear that the ones whose remains in that charred vehicle Monday evening behind that storage facility in that secluded neighborhood, they fear that it is the bodies of their loved ones. Now, something else about this mystery. One of the three adults from Florida, DeMille Roman, well, they're officially listed as missing by the police, but one of them, and that is, of course, DeMille, it seems that he has ties to the Rochester area. That's according to a Rochester television station up there. WHEC-TV in Rochester is reporting that the gentleman, 29 years of age, DeMille, was actually used to live in the Rochester suburb of Webster, there in Rochester. On September the 20th, Buffalo News reported that they found the drugs, and they found that this guy had ties up there. So there's some questions, isn't there? Some questions that certainly makes this a mystery. A mystery maybe for some of you armchair investigators out to figure out. I'd like to know what you think about it. I'd like to know what you think really happened up there. What's really going on there? There's some questions I have. Number one, what were they doing, and why were they traveling to New York? Number two, what happened to the third person in this? Not the husband and wife, but what happened to DeMille? I mean, we know 2 people were in the car. Was one of those him? If so, where's the third person? And according to the police, 2 bodies were found in the fire, and even though the video was not totally clear, police do not believe that one of the 2 running suspects coming from the vehicle was either one of the 3. So if this third person is the mule, and if it's not the husband or the wife or the husband or the parents of the child, rather, if that wasn't him, where is he? Was he held hostage to get the drugs? Why did they kill 2 persons if the drugs weren't there? I mean, why? If you're going to get drugs, if you paid for those drugs, and they were bringing drugs, and I'm not saying they are, all this is just what we suspect at this point. All of this is just total speculation because the police are very tight-lipped about this, as you can understand. But if that was the reason, why did they kill them then? Why did they kill them if the drugs weren't there? Was it a drug deal gone bad? Was the mule left with the drugs, and then did he run away? And why? Why in the world would they bring a 3-year-old boy to a drug deal? Now, all of this is now speculation. Police are very tight-lipped about it. But what do you think? I'd like to know what you would think. I'd like to hear from you. Contact us at charliecrimebuster.com. Contact us. Tell us what you think. Get a hold of us. We'll actually share some of your theories on the next podcast if you let us know. But you will need to understand one thing. There are some things we can learn from this. Yep, there's lessons to be learned. Maybe you're tempted to make one trip that'll make you big bucks. Well, not only is it wrong, it's dangerous. Here's the lessons. They were in the wrong place, at the wrong time, with the wrong people. You learn from this, number 1, you need to avoid being out in the early morning hours. Remember Clay County? They would stop the vehicle with stickers on it, between 1 and 5 a.m. Why that time? Well, as I was the chief deputy, I would tell our men and women of law enforcement that after 11:30 at night, if you have probable cause, you stop a vehicle. Not just for any reason, but you have to have probable cause. But stop any vehicle with probable cause. Why? Because a lot of people are up to no good during that time. There's a whole ton of DUIs out there, people driving while impaired, who will kill other people if you don't stop them. So I said stop those cars, not just to check on the infraction, however small it may be, a tag light out or maybe a tail light out, any probable cause, pull it over, tell them about the infraction, but also check to make sure they're not driving under the influence. Also check to find out if something else is going on. Ted Bundy, you know why he was caught? He was caught by an officer, a police officer out on the road, a patrol officer who had probable cause to make a traffic stop. That's how he got caught in the first place. So if you're out at that time of the morning, you need to be very careful where you are and what you're doing. Number 2, avoid being around the wrong people. Unknown people can be criminals. Remember the Craigslist killer? Didn't really know that person. Killed a lot of people. Used to be different. I remember on Sunday afternoons as a young man, my wife and I just drive around, meet people. One time saw a bunch of young guys about my age playing football. Just jumped out and started playing football with them. Not quite that way today. You got to be careful about the people that you're around. So avoid being out in the early morning hours. Number 2, avoid being out around the wrong people. And number 3, avoid being out in the wrong places. Remember where they went to? They went to a secluded industrial park at 3 a.m. in the morning. Now, what are you going to do at 3 a.m. in the morning at a secluded industrial park in an area that you're not familiar with? And beyond that, why in the world would you take your 3-year-old son? In less than 10 minutes, 2 people, we don't know who they are for sure, but 2 people were murdered. The vehicle was in flames. The little boy was kidnapped. Thank God they got him to somebody who took care of him. But that happened. Avoid being out in the early morning hours, avoid being around the wrong people, and avoid being in the wrong places. There are some lessons that you can learn. Now, if you've enjoyed today's podcast, you think others would or could learn from it, please join our team of Crimebusters. Share the podcast. Share the podcast with others. Like us on Facebook. Visit our website, charliecrimebuster.com. Check our resources for safety guides. Help us get out the word. This is Charlie Crimebuster, and we'll be bringing you more information about this mystery during the next podcast. But until then, may I remind you to avoid being in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people, because the life you save may be your very own.